Okay. Hello. 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 So we're back. And this week we're going to be talking about, it's a very rainy day, by the way. We're going to be talking about detox reactions and things that are causing like major issues with that. So, we got to talk about what they are. And then more importantly, like what are we going to do about them to potentially like kind of, help mitigate them and help understand what's going on. So we have to talk about, the healing crisis in and of itself. And, to start by talking about this time is we need to talk about Herring's law of cure. Or this is also known as the healing crisis. And this doctor kind of back in the day, Dr. Herring, he was talking about, how curing something takes place. And I love this. The cure must take place from above downwards, top down, from inside outwards, and from more important organs to less important organs, and in the reverse order of the appearance of symptoms, which I think is always an interesting one. So, usually the thing that we want to change the most is the thing that we kind of have to wait the most time for. And I think that's something like where a lot of us get kind of, caught up with. It just doesn't take, or it takes longer than we want it to, it just doesn't kind of happen at the rate we do. And if we don't give it, the time and the grace that it needs, it's going to kind of lead to some, issues with that. What you need to understand, though, is that on one level or another, the body is always cleansing, it's always detoxifying, and there are different stages to this kind of just as we go throughout life. Now, we know most natural food here on this planet, or natural species, inherently know like what to consume as food. Unfortunately, like human beings, I think have lost, as a majority, like mostly lost this kind of intuitive knowing that perhaps earlier versions of humans used to have. It's essentially a learned behavior. We learn that things like Coca-Cola and Skittles and chips, are food, but these are not things that, occur, in their normal state. And, this is largely driven by money. The major motivating factor in today's world is going to be things like big food, big pharma, big ag, and like I mentioned this before, like in many ways, they're actually all the same thing. Many products and foods are sold for financial gain and at the expense of consumers' health. This is more or less like how things are going here in the US. And as a result, we have now achieved the standing, if you will, of the sickest population of humans that, as far as recorded history goes, is the sickest ever. Despite the fact that we spend the most on healthcare, we are the most disease-ridden species on the planet. Now, I know that's a dreary way to start this, but like we need to understand the context for this because, so many of us have backed up detox pathways, are not doing the right thing on a regular basis, maybe haven't eaten a fruit or vegetable in like a week. And like the degree of change that needs to take place is so high. And while you will feel better on the back end of it, going through it isn't easy all the time. And going through cleansing, going through repairing, as cool as it sounds, as detoxing, it is not necessarily always the most fun process, and it is not always the most enjoyable. So understanding that, like going into this, is incredibly important if you want to make the progress you want to and do it in a way where ideally it can last going forward, so that you don't have to live a life where you're on medications and relying on pharmaceuticals to just live your daily life. It does not have to be that way by any stretch of the imagination. Now, so we have to talk about like what these cleansing cycles are and what detoxification is and what are some of these symptoms you might experience, and then also how you can manage these things as you go through. So cleansing cycles, detox reactions, they can last anywhere from about an hour or so to about 3 weeks. And it depends on the level of toxicity in said person. If you experience these signs, these are usually a good sign that the body is cleaning out the toxins that you need to. Now, the caveat is like you do not necessarily need to ride them out if they're really bad. You can take your foot off the gas a little bit, so to speak, if you need to, and then go back into it after you regain strength. So obviously that will take longer though. So there is, a cost benefit analysis that you have to make on your own. I'm not here to tell you which way is right or which way is better. I'm here to tell you what is, and then ultimately you can decide what's best for you. So the body is always trying to keep itself clean through detoxification. And we've talked about this. We have our liver, we have our kidneys, we have our breath, we have sweat, we have urine. These are ways that we get rid of toxins. Stool, we get rid of toxins. Now, what happens is sometimes, like if we get sick or get ill, this can lead to detox reactions that will help us eliminate this or purge, if you will, in a more efficient way. And this can be like some of the symptoms that you normally will see with like a cold and flu, fevers, vomiting, diarrhea. It could be urination. These are mechanisms that we have to to purge whatever we need to. And during the cleansing process and healing process, old symptoms may return for a short period of time, but then they disappear and the body ends up healing that area. These are usually old toxic problems that were suppressed. Now, this could be from, again, pharmaceutical medications. This could be from ignoring it. This could be from painkillers. This could be from steroid injections. It could be any number of things. But usually during the healing process, it might feel a little bit worse for a short amount of time before it starts to get better. And if they are particularly in the areas that are bothering you, it's just important to realize that you shouldn't necessarily panic. It's understanding that this is part of the process as far as moving forward. Now, that being said, like I said, detoxification can happen too fast. You may want to slow things down. And if you're coming off a typical, standard American cheeseburger, fries, bacon, egg, and cheese, this is your daily, your normal day, sandwich for lunch, when you're eating all these foods that are laced with toxic chemicals and pesticides and herbicides, and then immediately transition to, say, fresh, raw fruits and vegetables, that is going to be a very intense shift in a shorter period of time, and that can bring on some symptoms. We know fruits, for example, are super cleansing. Many of them are astringent. They're going to help pull things out and get rid of them as need be. This is why, especially in the beginning, I like having more of a variety, maybe even some beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, vegetables, to slow down this process. If you were to say to go into like juice cleansing or juice fasting or even intermittent fasting too quickly, you can bring upon these symptoms and they can be really intense really quickly. So you may want to go low and slow, so to speak. Now you have to understand that detoxification is something that's always going on. It's not something that you can just like, okay, I'm turning it on one day. It's always happening in the background one way or another. To what degree is going to be based on the lifestyle that you're living. So, keep that in mind. There's always ways you can take your foot off the gas or put your pedal to the metal, so to speak, depending on where you're at. It never ends. It's just a question of to what degree are you diving in, and are those pathways backed up? Because if they are backed up, that can be, again, something else that we need to kind of work on and go through. So if you're starting, like, if your natural healing journey, like there are a couple questions you need to ask yourself. First, when you're if you're considering a program like any of the ones that I talk about, you have to ask, what can it do for you in fixing the root cause of your problem? Is it going to get to the root? Does it improve my health, longevity, and vitality? Does it give me a purpose or aid in my spiritual awakening? So it's important. Remember, there's a body, mind, spirit approach to health. That's what we take here. And it should be enhancing all three of those things. Should be. Now, we tend to talk about things a lot in terms of alkaline and acid, the two sides of chemistry, which are acids and bases, essentially. Most people will consume predominantly acid-forming foods. Again, your burgers, your fries, a lot of cooked foods, dairy, meats, etc. These are all very acidic. What we have found when there's a lot of these foods, particularly if they are produced in the way that Americans produce food, we get congestive disorders, autoimmune disorders, cancers, diabetes, heart disease. This is not shocking. So, it's an imbalance. We're not getting the electrolytes that we need from the alkalizing foods that help things disperse. So I would say getting started, if you can get to a point of 60 to 80% raw, ideally fruits and vegetables, that's going to go a really long way. And the closer you get to 100%, the body's response is going to be better. Now, so that's something to kind of keep in mind. Now, as far as detoxification and what you can expect, there's a couple things. Oh, the video cut out. Give me 1 second. We're back. There's a bunch of things from aches and pains, cold and flu-like symptoms, constipation, diarrhea, fevers, inflammation, itching, swelling. We're going to cover all of these as far as A, why you might experience them, and then B, what you can do to fix them. If you are going through one of these as a detox or cleansing reaction. So we'll start with aches and pains. So these can occur during a healing crisis. These usually occur in areas of the body that are weakest, and they can last anywhere from a few hours to a week or so. Usually following, though, that time period, that area of the body will actually end up being much stronger than it was previously, which is pretty cool. Now, pain, we know, is usually a result of something that's inflamed or acidic. Pain can also occur when there's energy blocked, so there's stagnant energy somewhere in the body. Or it could be due to something like toxic overload, trauma to some degree, endocrine disruptors, heavy metals, excess cholesterol production as far as trying to put out a fire, crystal deposits like uric acid crystals, calcium crystals, oxalate stones, your stones. These can all occur in a more acidic environment. So oxalic acid, that's oxalates, uric acid. When the body's very acidic, we have to remember that things tend to coagulate. They tend to clump together. So if you're seeing a lot of stone formation, think that there's a lot of clumping together. Now, the conventional approach to this is going to say, let's treat the pain, or, let's get rid of the symptom. While this is great in an acute situation or a life-threatening situation that requires you to go to, say, the emergency room, it's important to know that outside of this emergency trauma care, the conventional model has a lot of pitfalls. And we see this all the time, especially when it comes to aches and pains with things like steroids, NSAIDs, over-the-counter drugs like Tylenol, ibuprofen, which destroy your liver, kidneys, and all these, interestingly enough, detoxification organs. Masking the symptoms, it is not going to fix anything and will actually set you up for weaker tissue, usually degeneration of tissue over time. And this is something that you're doing for a while. These are weaknesses that you can develop and then can ultimately be passed on to future generations if that is the case. So it's much more important to get to the bottom of whatever's going on and start to fix it as it comes. Now, we know pain comes in many different forms and intensities. They could be a variety of different things. There may be times like for where pain medications might be necessary if the pain is too much. And obviously this is where you need to use your intuition, use judgment. But it wasn't a lack of medication that got you there in the first place. So fixing the problem, understanding that, you know, it might not feel great going through a detox reaction at the time, but coming out the other end, you can feel so much better. Now, there are some things you can use to help mitigate pain during a cleansing reaction. So topically, you can use things like arnica, calendula is really good. You could use anti-inflammatory herbs like white willow, like turmeric, like clove, like frankincense, boswellia, cinnamon. There's and there's a few others out there that are really, really good as far as lowering inflammation naturally and, you know, limiting pain. Sometimes, depending on where the pain is, especially if it's, you know, joint or musculoskeletal, sometimes adding heat or ice, depending on where it is, can be helpful too as far as managing symptoms. So there are plenty of anti-inflammatory herbs. There's topicals like arnica. There's warm cold compresses. There's many ways you can go about trying to manage pain if you have aches and pains during a cleansing reaction. Now, by far the most common symptoms, I will say, that come up during a cleansing reaction are like cold and flu-like symptoms. So this is usually due to lymphatic congestion to some degree in the sinuses, in the lungs, in the lymphatic system in general. You know, these are really active during a cleansing process because this is likely what's really backed up, what's clumped up. It's the lymphatic system. So you may see different colored mucus. You know, it is vital that if you're experiencing this, you definitely don't want to stop it. This is your body trying to expel whatever needs to be expelled. You know, you can try things like slippery elm cough drops if you need it. Ideally, I would avoid cough drops. Your body is coughing to expel some sort of mucus or some sort of toxins that's trying to get rid of. You know, the deep cleansing reactions sometimes can be really scary. It's really important that you trust your body, that knows what it's doing, and that you're adjusting appropriately here. You know, if it is too fast, if it's too fast for you, if you're feeling uncomfortable, dial it back a little bit. Yes, it might take a little longer, but that's okay, especially for peace of mind. What I would say is really important, especially with cold and flu-like symptoms, is you want to make sure that you're having at least one bowel movement every day. Ideally, it would be 2 to 3. I've worked with people, and I know many doctors who have worked with people who are not having a bowel movement daily. It could be 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes even less. That's not great, because if you're not eliminating via the colon, those toxins need to come out some other way. And if there's a backup, that is going to lead to more potential symptoms that you might end up feeling. So important to kind of keep that in mind. Constipation, diarrhea, this is something that's can happen as well. Again, this kind of goes along with that last point. But let's talk a little bit about the diarrhea part. So if there's loose stools, runny stools, consider herbs like marshmallow, like slippery elm, like aloe, like artichoke, chamomile, peppermint. You could try chia or flax seeds. These are all fantastic to help build bulk in the stool and honestly more fiber-rich foods. So if you're consuming or including more fruits and vegetables, that's going to help with this. You know, you may want to try binders potentially, but I try not to start with them, and that's something that you can check out. Again, if you're in here, I would check out the digestion protocol and start working through some of those. I like things like DGL That's really good. Licorice, I didn't mention, the deglycerated licorice, great for gut health. The other form of licorice is actually great for your adrenal. So just throw that in there. So raw foods, again, is going to cover this. Raw, fresh fruits and vegetables is going to cover increasing your fiber intake. This should help over time with diarrhea. It might not happen overnight, but within, again, a week or two, those stools, as you're increasing your fiber intake, your gut will start to adapt, adjust, build its own strength, and then start to deal with that. Now let's go to the other side of the spectrum, which is constipation. So constipation is especially problematic because it's hard on the body for a lot of reasons. One is if we have food that's stuck in the intestines for a long period of time, this can lead to putrefaction. This putrefied matter can end up being excreted through, or not excreted, being back absorbed into the body, where it then can cause even more damage. So, and these can include things like drug deposits, endocrine disrupting chemicals, heavy metals, food toxins, environmental toxins. This is why it's so important, and why I talk about it pretty much every time we come on here, that if we're not having at least one bowel movement a day, we have to get that going first, because if we're not eliminating toxins, they could eventually recirculate. So herbs that can help here, okra is great. DGL, licorice, like I mentioned, and cat's claw. So all of these are going to be really helpful as far as helping with constipation. Other ones that are great for just healing the bowels in general, chamomile and peppermint are fantastic options. Slippery elm, marshmallow, and aloe. So, slippery elm, marshmallow, aloe, that's a great combination for any sort of digestive healing process. All very healing, very soothing, very alkalizing in general, and honestly, some of my favorite herbs to use because just these things are so common. Now, if, the bowels are still not functioning, as well as they should, that is when, and this might be something you might want to try, initially, that might be when you want to try laxative type herbs like senna or cascara sagrada. These for me are tricky to talk about because I find that they can potentially be addicting if you take them for too long. Meaning that if you stop taking them, it's going to be hard to go to the bathroom again if you're taking them for a long period of time. So if you're going to use senna, cascara sagrada, something like that, I would not recommend taking it for more than like a week to 7 to 10 days at a time. And you have to take at least equally as long a break. The goal for constipation should be to start increasing your fiber intake slowly. Sometimes increasing a lot of fiber too quickly can lead, again, to more constipation, which is counterproductive. But getting more raw foods in, juicing, blending, is going to be really helpful for not only hydrating the colon, but allowing for a better bowel movement. I've mentioned this all the time. This is the summer now. Find yourself some watermelon, start eating that. I've never seen anyone have trouble going to the bathroom when you're having a quarter to like a half of watermelon. So that could be just something nice to have. Fevers are the next one. So fevers are actually a natural process, the natural way that your body gets rid of toxins. So, there's a lot of debate, controversy, however you want to call it, on fevers. I want to dispel a little bit of that. So most adults, if they develop fevers, they're usually under or near 103 degrees. Children might get a little higher, maybe to 104 or 105. The biggest thing with the fever is you want to make sure you're hydrated. And again, hydration is not just the water we drink. It is the electrolyte content that we have. So, there's a reason your body's raising its temperature. We know that for every degree Fahrenheit that the body rises in temperature, the speed of the immune system doubles. So it's rising to take care of whatever imbalance is going on. And if we stunt that with something that's going to lower your fever, it's going to take longer to heal. So keep that in mind. Be smart, like I said, around the fevers, but like I said, adults rarely going to go over 103. Even kids up into like 104, usually it's not a problem. If you want to check into like more of this and some of the things you could do, I would check out the holistic first aid kit that I came up with, which is a very helpful resource for things like this. So if you experience a fever during a cleanse, I would say the number one thing to do was make sure you're staying hydrated with water, fresh fruit, and vegetable juices. Lots of those. A lot of fresh fruit, vegetable juices, blending. This is going to give you the minerals that you need to nourish your body, especially if you're sweating them out, for example, in, say, a fever. So that would be something that I would kind of really take note of. Inflammation is another thing. It's a big buzzword. Essentially, inflammation, like I said, is an acid buildup. It's a fire, so to speak. It's heat. Do we need inflammation sometimes? Absolutely. We absolutely need inflammation. If you're cutting yourself, you want to get swelling, you want to bring heat to the area to bring the healing constituents that we need to make an improvement, to start the healing process. If we're constantly inflamed, that's a little bit of a different story. Again, leads to a clogged environment. This could be brought on mostly by what we eat, our environment, than to just be inflamed. Again, some herbs that are really helpful here: white willow, clove, thyme, ginger, slippery elm, garlic, turmeric, comfrey, marshmallow, wild yam. Yep, there's even more than that. This is where I really like essential oils like clove, like thyme. White willow salagesic by MediHerb is like one of my favorites for pain. Fantastic option. There's a few other really good ones out there too, but that one I would say is my favorite. If there's itching, so itching and swelling, this can also happen. It's important to understand, again, these might happen, especially in the beginning. It's not worth, don't get scared of it per se. Understand that it's part of the natural process. Sometimes swellings, like I said, can erupt from the skin. But usually these are going to be pretty short-lived. And as long, again, as you're having a high amount of fruits and vegetables, it will start to heal this process, and it shouldn't be as, dramatic. Calendula, aloe vera, lavender, turmeric. Like there's a lot of these things that can help, when these things are kind of going on. If you happen to have inflammation and there's itching as part of it, usually if there's itching to go along with the swelling, that's usually a sign of fungal overgrowth. So then I would look into antifungal herbs and things like that to deal with candida or what have you that way. So, so that's kind of like a separate category, but generally, like I said, good herbs, particularly for just itching and swelling without, it being present through your sleep at night. That's where you're going to get things like calendula, aloe, lavender. These are all going to be really helpful. Heartburn. So heartburn is something that's fairly common. A lot of folks have it in America. This is largely due to poor nutrition, poor stress management techniques, no sleep. And also, this is a big one, especially here in America, relying on medications to fix the problem. So the thing is, like when you're getting heartburn, it's important to understand that there's too much acid, or there's acid coming through the stomach opening, that's causing those types of symptoms. Now, this could be due to a variety of reasons, one of which could be a slow or minimized production of sodium bicarbonate, particularly in the pancreas, and the bile duct, so that the bile allows the stomach to start to heal. This can potentially impair digestion if that's not the case. Things that can help for heartburn: ginger is probably the best. Peppermint is great. Fennel is great. Chamomile is great, but I would say ginger absolutely would be the best to use here. Low energy is also something. So feeling lethargy, just not feeling like yourself, for lack of a better term. It's important to understand that with cleansing, stored toxins are being broken down and released from the tissues. Generally speaking, the older the person, the more toxins will have built up in that person's body. So that could generally lead to, not being as energetic a person. So that's kind of something else that's kind of worthwhile, to take note of. Usually I will say what's happening, especially with energy levels, or with low energy, because this could be something. Oh, let me mention this for heartburn. So ginger, I would say, is the go-to number one. Peppermint is great for number two. Fennel is great for number three, and chamomile. Those would be the 4 herbs that I would go with for heartburn. Raw foods like apples, really great for digestion. Again, a lot of different raw fruits going to be really helpful. If you're wanting to start to heal the gut lining, slippery elm, marshmallow, gentian root, all really, really helpful. Low energy. Now, low energy is something I know a lot of folks struggle with. So I get it. What I see, though, usually with people is a reliance on sugar, a reliance on caffeine, and a reliance on alcohol. Those tend to be the big 3 that are going to affect your sleep, which is going to affect how you feel from an exhaustion standpoint. So there's definitely like a lot going on here that could, be something great, but it is tough, like, if you're kind of still playing that game. So it's kind of important to kind of keep that in mind. It's really going to start with ditching the stimulants if you can, especially coffee, because what these are going to do is affect the adrenal glands, which affect your energy levels. And again, if you become addicted to something, it's going to basically, run your life and set you up for not a great situation. So important to kind of keep that in mind. So those are some of the big kind of things that you might want to cover. Some of the big symptoms that come up, and what are some herbs and different things you can use to kind of get through that. So hope you were taking notes, or you could pause and kind of go through it. What are some of the things that you want to definitely avoid during your cleanse? So again, this is where it comes customized with you, and I'm more than happy to work with you on any of these things. Dehydration is definitely the most common. So you want to stay hydrated, clean water, fruits, vegetables, smoothies, blending, really going to be helpful. Pesticides just add to the toxic burden in the body. So making sure you're getting organic fruits and vegetables, especially, going to be really helpful. Not only that, they can lead to nervous system and hormonal problems. Impatience, wanting something faster than it can happen. It's important to notice when you start consuming a lot more whole foods, the body will start to clean to some degree, but sometimes you need the addition of herbal formulas, lymphatic formulas, gut formulas, parasite formulas to help get to that spot. And sometimes it's more than one, either individual herb or preparation. So, be patient. It takes time. This is, something that's an art, not necessarily a strict science. So, kind of stay on track and stay with it. And the longer you stick with it, the more you will stay on track, stay positive, keep going, have some patience, you'll get there. You don't want to go too fast, like I mentioned. So, if you need to incorporate more cooked foods, more cooked vegetables, you could do it with quinoa or brown rice or something like that. This will slow down the really intense cleansing. And again, the more you go more towards those raw foods, that's more of putting your foot on the gas. So judge where you're at, judge where you're feeling, and kind of go from there. You don't want to overexert yourself during a cleanse. That's not to say do no exercise, but definitely be cognizant of where you're at. Now, like I said, fevers are definitely something to kind of watch out for. You don't want to go over like 103. Now, I mentioned children will have naturally slightly higher fevers. There's a fine line, though, between interfering with the body trying to heal itself and, needing to kind of step in and do something a little bit more. Remember, hydration is really important. You could take advantage of cool baths, cold baths to kind of like really help and, work with that too. Overeating. So overeating can definitely be something too. Generally, if you see animals out in the wild, they're not going to eat a lot if and when they're sick, if they eat at all. It's because the body tries to clean itself out. This is why fasting is such a powerful tool. There's a lot that can go on, but it's important that like going through a cleanse, whether it's a 30-day or 90-day or any of these that I work with here, some of the things that you will experience are better energy, better breathing, increased senses of smell, taste, hearing, etc. Lymphatic swelling will disappear, improve circulation. Your hair might return to back some of its normal color. Reduce brain fog, improve memory. Your standard disease symptoms tend to disappear. Your bowels work better. Your kidneys work better. Your heart arrhythmias start to normalize. So there's a lot going on here, but it's important to understand that, because we live in this world where we have this treatment or pill for an ill kind of mentality, like that's this world we live in. This is not that. There's an art to it. And it's important to understand that what you eat, drink, think, breathe, put on your skin, who you interact with is going to affect your ability to heal. Now, if you're on any medications, obviously this is not medical advice, can't say it is, but if it was me, I would want to reduce the use of my medications with a professional if I was on them. And if I was going through a cleanse, I would want to talk to them about certain ones like blood pressure medications or diabetes medications, because going through a cleanse, doing some of the programs that we talk about here, can optimize and normalize your blood sugars, and most likely, if you have high blood pressure, lower it. So if it was me, I would want to be working with my doctor to monitor those medications if possible and see if you can help. Now, what I will say, if your doctor's like, oh, this won't work, or, oh, your diet doesn't change anything, or, oh, you're going to have to take this forever, fire him or her and find someone who will work with you. There's more than enough data out there at this point that talks about how you can, manage things like diabetes and heart disease and blood pressure and everything like that. You are in the driver's seat. It is your life. What we went through today are some of the major symptoms you might experience. So if you go through something, this is something worthwhile listening to, appreciating, and, going through. So, and hopefully these, left you some answers here to work with. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you have any, questions or need to work out something, let me know. I'm more than happy to help. Also, if you want to try a 30-day challenge, which we're starting in a couple days here, today's the 27th, so in July, let me know. I'm more than happy to help point you in the right direction. You could join really anytime, and I will send you the course and get you started, or if you want to work with me directly, we could absolutely do that too. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.